Here's Tony with the new Chevy Corsica.
The Corsica was one of GM's early efforts in its plan to re-engineer and restyle its products from the 1990s. As a styling exercise, it certainly meets with my approval, and like the Lumina we tested recently, it follows a theme that you'll find on GM products all over the world. All Corsicas are 4 doors, by the way. If you want a 2-door version of this Chevy, you buy a Beretta. Rear seat room is as good as you're likely to find in this size class, and there's a decent trunk too. Like so many other models battling for success in this sector, the Corsica has wraparound body color bumpers, a wide rub strip along its flanks, and a generous amount of glass to create an airy cabin. Our test Corsica was an LTZ model, an upper-end car in this range with equipment to match its status. 1990 Corsica LTZs have a 3.1-litre 140 horsepower V6, which replaces a 2.8-litre V6 used on earlier models. It's a nice responsive engine with a bit of a roar to it at high revs, although this is nothing to get too bothered about. 0 to 100 km/h times are in the 9-second range, which is quite respectable for this class of car. Standard transmission is a 3-speed automatic, and this works well with the V6, like most similar GM drivetrains. Fuel economy is not a strong point with this car, and you can expect nothing better than around 10 litres per 100 kilometres for all-around driving. Mechanical features include power rack and pinion steering with a quicker-than-usual ratio, gas shock absorbers, and stabilizer bars for improved handling. A look inside this car will reveal how far behind other GM divisions Chevrolet is when it comes to interior planning. It may be a personal thing, but why is this manufacturer so wild about dreary, monotone interior colors? Since I hate blue interiors, I took an instant dislike to this one. Everything is in the same shade of blue, from seats to seat belts and from carpets to dash covering. A little imagination and some contrasting shades could work wonders here. The inside has a plasticky look that you won't find in a Pontiac or Oldsmobile. The appearance of the plastic moldings and trim parts just shrieks entry level, and this is not an entry-level car. Front seats are very shapeless and uncomfortable and don't seem to provide any serious support at all. Chevrolet seems to have corrected earlier problems I noted on this car that involved an unbalanced relationship between driver's seat, steering wheel and pedals. On the plus side, I did like the handy seat tilt feature, which falls readily to hand for adjusting the seat angle. Add some lumbar and thigh support and these seats would be just fine. The seat belts are incorporated into the doors, which is all well and good, but their location is far too high. Smaller drivers find the belt draped across their face or neck, which is just about the best reason I can think of for objecting to seatbelt use. For some reason, Chevrolet decided to combine the heater air conditioning panel with a sound system. They're far too close together and easily confused with one another. Who does Chevrolet have working in their interiors department? Judging by the Corsica and the Lumina we tested recently, they deserve to be sweeping the plant for a living. Like many other North American models, you can order this car with a bewildering selection of option packages. Our car came with a very efficient air conditioning system that worked better than some we found on European imports costing twice the Corsica's price. But having let loose with a few complaints, I must say I grew to like this car. It handles surprisingly well, and I find it very pleasant to live with on a day-to-day basis. It's also quite reasonably priced at $17,900. If the Corsica is your kind of car, there are lots of similar offerings from other makers. Apart from GM rivals, there's the Chrysler Acclaim, the Ford Taurus and Mercury Sable, the Eagle Premier and the Toyota Camry, all of which can be ordered with a V6. Among 4-cylinder rivals, the new Nissan Stanza would be very tempting to me, as would the Subaru Legacy and the Hyundai Sonata. You've never been too kind to GM, Ted. What do you think of this one?
Well, first of all, the overall concept of this car drives me up a wall. Let me be more specific, though. The interior in this thing is a disaster. Again, what were they thinking about? They must have cut every corner in the book. The only thing I like about the interior is the seatbelt and the door. I don't think you like it as much as I do. I like that arrangement. But this is horrible, the inside of this car. The seats are terrible. The handbrake feels like something out of a logging truck. It's just a disaster. I like the engine. This is a little bit more powerful than the old 2.8-liter V6 they used to have, and I do like it. And as usual, GM have a good drivetrain. But this car is below everything else you mentioned in this marketplace, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, interiors is something Chevy doesn't do too well. when General Motors decided to take its various divisions and give them more independence so the cars wouldn't end up all looking the same, somehow Chevy got left behind in the interior design department. And I think that they're among the worst cars in the market inside.
I've said this before with GM products, I'll probably say it again, but if they had spent, let's say, another $500 on this car, on the interior, and just brought it up to the standards of the Japanese and even the Korean Sonata, they would have had a good car here, you know.
Well, that's sure, but it doesn't really take any extra money to position the controls properly.
True.
I mean, it doesn't cost any more money to place the radio away from the heater and air conditioning controls. They're all mixed up on one panel. It's very bad.
Yeah. It's no secret that domestic car makers are taking a bit of a beating these days, and GM are taking a beating probably more than most. This is an example of why. If you keep cutting corners like this and keep giving people less than they want and don't put any thought into the car itself, why should I buy it?
I think it's maybe, I mean, in many respects the car is very good. There's nothing cheap about the materials. The quality is very good. It's well put together and it didn't rattle and squeak and so forth. But for some reason there is somebody there penny pinching the design engineers to death, and this is what results from it.
The criticism against GM, of course, is that in the final analysis, the cars, what comes out is predicated not by the engineers but by the accountants. The accountants say, oh, no, we can't quite do that.
Yeah, well, I stick by I did get to like it, but there are a lot of things wrong with it, and we'll sum up here. On the bad side, the plastic interior we didn't like at all. The front seats were very unsupportive. On the plus side, the price was pretty good. The engine was, as with most GM products, very good too. And the styling was very acceptable indeed.